So this is how I found an apartment in Vancouver, Canada in the middle of a pandemic from another country. Vancouver's housing market is crazy. Things are off the market like that here. And we found this apartment months in advance. They held it for us with this gorgeous view, 2 bedrooms, 2 bath, 650 square feet, which is relatively small, but it's well designed and functional for the space that it is. In this video, I will show you how I found this apartment. Check out that view. This is the view that I can see from the living room, the bedroom, and like the office spare room. So there are 2 ways that I have found is easiest for finding an apartment in a place that you're not currently at. And I was living in Georgia and my husband was planning on moving here and I knew we were going to be moving together. And so I was kind of searching for an apartment for the 2 of us from the United States. And we later were in Japan briefly before moving here. The first thing that I did was I found out what ways people sell from like person to person. First way that I searched for an apartment was using Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist. And those 2 are used quite frequently in Vancouver and are pretty reliable and trustworthy. So what you want to do is, if you're not looking in Vancouver, Canada, I would recommend finding what people are using to buy or sell or exchange services / goods in that area. So whether that be somewhere in the States, somewhere in Asia, just find out what medium that they use in that area, and that's going to be the most trustworthy again for that area. So for example, there's a lot of places in the States where Craigslist isn't the most reliable or safest option, and so you're not going to want to try to find a place to live using Craigslist in those areas. But if somewhere like Vancouver is already known for that and that's what people living there, locals, use, then you're going to want to also use Craigslist. I would recommend, first of all, make sure you know what you're looking for. Kind of get to know the area using Google Maps. So we had never been to Canada. I have been to Canada once, but I was on the East Coast to Niagara Falls and I was like 9. Andrew has never been. So what we did was we were just looking at maps a lot. We were kind of thinking through options. His job is going to be at UBC, University of British Columbia, and that's on like the very far west point of Vancouver. And so we kind of were looking at how far things would be by public transport, how long things would be by car. We were thinking through different options in the local area to see what we'd be looking for. So for example, the closer it was to UBC, we were thinking, okay, maybe we won't need a car. We can use public transport, we can use bicycles, things like that. The further out we were thinking, okay, so we'll need a place that can have a car because we'll probably need one. And so just things like that, keep in mind as you're searching, because you don't want to agree to a place, for example, let's say it was somewhere really far out that wasn't really close to public transport. We wouldn't want to find that place and to agree to it just to realize, oh, there's no place to park your car. There's like all these extra fees associated with having a car. If you live there, etc. So be sure and find out like what you're needing and make sure you're filtering down using that. Another thing, I'm big on budget, so this is a huge one. Make sure you're filtering into your budget. So like let's say that $1,000 is your maximum for rent. Make sure you're putting that filter in, and then also I would recommend sometimes adding $100 or $200 to that, because sometimes, especially here that I've noticed, they'll include other things like internet and electricity, water, things like that. And so if you're saying I want $1,000 for rent but I can pay for these extra bills, I would increase your filter to include the options that may already have those included. But also be wise and don't agree to a place that's $200 higher than your budget but also doesn't include the other bills that you're gonna have to pay. So definitely having filters about price, location, find like the location that you're looking for, and make sure you again know your area kind of a little bit better. Again, we didn't know it super well, but we were just consistently looking at Google Maps and looking at the like different regions and just trying to kind of get a handle on where we would be and what that would mean for our day-to-day lives. So as you're looking, I would definitely recommend kind of reaching out to various people. Even Even if you're doing this pretty far in advance, you might get an idea of what kind of tenants people are looking for, how long usually people expect you to take from like the day you agree to move and the day that you actually move in. So all those kind of things, it's good to kind of get a feel for what that area is like. As long as you're kind of used to that process and you're kind of getting to know it, it'll put a lot less stress on you when you're actually finally having to make a decision of, I'm moving to this place. Something that I actually saw on a YouTube video that is super helpful for Vancouver in particular, but I think probably anywhere places are on the market and off the market really quick. A great tip that I saw was filtering the when it was posted to 1 day, and that'll help you find those places that have just been put up. And if you have one and that's been there for like a month, more often than not, it's probably not a very good option. If it's a place that usually things go really fast, if a local hasn't snatched it up, it's probably not great if it's been up there for a whole month. So I would keep that in mind, particularly in Vancouver or other big cities or wherever housing goes really quickly. That's what I would recommend for using Marketplace or Craigslist and things like that. Again, do your research for the town or city that you're moving to, because they may not use Facebook, they may not use Craigslist, they may use something totally different. So just kind of find out what they use. My next suggestion, which I think is a little bit more original, I personally haven't seen many people do this, but I highly recommend it. So I personally do not know anyone from Vancouver. However, thanks to social media, I made a post on Facebook saying, is anyone from Vancouver, or has anyone lived in Vancouver, or knows someone who lives in Vancouver that could give me some insights on housing? Okay, so my dad knew a person who knew a person who knew a person who knew a person, and that's where I'm living now. Using networking and mutual friends and mutual connections, you can find a lot of things in a lot of places, because thanks to social media, you're connected all over the world, and more often than not, your group of friends will know people all across the world. Between families and friends and mutual families and friends, like someone knows someone who probably lives where you're trying to move. All that to say is, far in advance, as far as you can, as soon as you do plan on moving somewhere, I would make a post. I did it. It ended up being almost a year before we ended up moving because of COVID and everything. But before we even had decided for sure, I wanted to have some networking in place just in case. Because first of all, when you're moving to a new town, it's nice to know some people who kind of know the area, maybe even tell you a little bit about the culture, things like that. And so in general, it's a great idea to network with people who are local there. I'll give you my specific situation. So my dad had a coworker. My dad's coworker had a friend who lived in Vancouver. So they connected us with the coworker's friend, and they are the leader of a church, and that church had a member who actually, that member ended up knowing my husband's family, but they were connected with a lot of people who actually do things for student housing, for international students, etc. They didn't have anything for us, but because of their network and their connections, they were able to say, hey, there's this young couple, they're looking for an apartment or house or something. This is approximately their budget. Let me know if you find anything. And through them, we were able to get another contact, and that's the person who got us connected here. Using networking and things like that, it sounds a little complicated, but it's so worthwhile because it may be a place that's not even posted. And in our circumstance, this is an apartment that we went to found through the general searching that I was talking about earlier, and the reason being is because this is kind of a job/apartment. We do not get rent for free at all. This is actually a little bit above our price range, but things are included that we otherwise would have had to pay. In addition, we're kind of staffed for this building. We do things like we kind of lock up once a month, things like that, and it just allows us to live here at a slight discount. It took 5 different people connections to get to where we need. And so I highly recommend just trying to learn how to network, because it's a useful skill in general, but especially when you're looking for an apartment and you've never been there, it can be pretty intimidating. I personally was very nervous about finding somewhere that was safe, that I felt comfortable. Kind of having those connections, I was able to kind of trust the people I was speaking to, because again, people that I trust recommended them, and because of that, I was able to have a little bit more confidence in the agreement that I was making. And they did send some photos, but I never did like a video chat with them showing me around or anything like that. But again, because there were a lot of connections involved, I was able to to trust it. So of course, use your judgment. If kind of a sketchy friend recommends someone, maybe do some like more research. If you trust your friend, they're probably not going to lead you astray. There is a disclaimer. Obviously, when you're moving to a new place, you do need to be careful about making agreements and stuff online. But I will say, if you're making a connection based on like friends of friends and things like that, I personally think that your chances of it being like a bad situation is going to go down a little bit, just because your friend isn't going to want to lead you astray. And so they're going to want to do something to protect you and make sure that your connection is good. I found this networking to work out fantastic for us. We ended up with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, which is more than we needed. It's like 650 square feet or something like that. So it's relatively small, but for a couple who want to have kids before they move out, this is fantastic. And if our family visits or whatever, like we have a place for them to stay. So it's a huge blessing for us. And I feel like the networking suggestion isn't frequently used, and it absolutely should be, because it's so useful. If you've moved to another country, another place without having been there before, definitely leave a comment down below. Tell me your story, whether it be good or bad. People can learn from that. And if you'd be interested in how I found my other apartment, which was more of a local situation, absolutely let me know, and give this video a thumbs up, because that helps me know that you enjoy this and the algorithm also. I hope to see you in the next one.